Hello everybody, Jonathan Fox here, Washington, D.C. And as you know, we do a ton with video through our Real Talk Real Estate show to bring you the best content on a wide range of real estate topics. But let's face it, there's one question that I get asked over and over again. People ask me, Jonathan, how's the market? So rather than answering this question per each individual, getting back to you, I decided it might make some sense to actually create a show where my goal will now be to answer that question, how is the market, in as many ways as possible. Now, usually this happens in a casual setting over some beers at a bar. So I figured, why not crack a beer and actually have the conversation with you? So in today's episode, I'm drinking DC Brau, their IPA. It's a local brewery. And welcome folks to our new show, Whiteboard and Beers, where we're going to answer the question, how is the market? Check this out. Given this is our first show and our first beer and our first whiteboard, I thought it may make the most sense to start right where we live, here in Washington, D.C. So let's have a look. I want to start by focusing on a few key statistics here. And we're going to start by looking at what was going on in the marketplace this time last year into this time this year, because around the election, if you recall, there was all of these questions. What's going to happen with the market? So I actually took as much time as possible to compile data. So let's take a look. Here in 2016 in Washington, D.C., the median home sale price was $419,250, which was a record, right? We set a record in median home prices in 2016 in Washington, D.C., and everyone thought at the time that may be the top, that's the end of the bubble. Well, what I found interesting is that if you take a look 1 year later, this is data from April of 2017, because obviously it's a couple months behind, but the average home price right now in Washington, D.C. is $436,900, which is a new record. So from this time last year to this time this year, the market's gone up 4.1%. I'll drink to that. So it tells me one thing, bottom line, prices are up in the city. So I wanted to explore, why is that happening? Why are prices continuing to go up? Because we know a few things to be true in the marketplace. And I'll start right here. The interest rates on a 30-year fixed mortgage, right? This time last year were historically low, like bottom low. 3.59% for a 30-year fixed mortgage. Wow, probably won't see this again in my lifetime. And I've got hopefully a long time to live. So that gives you a sense of how excellent those rates were. 3.59% average on a 30-year fix. Well, if you take a look at today's rate as of August 2017, our rates are about 0.5% higher, hovering around 4.1%. Folks, that's a 0.5% increase, and on a $500,000 a year mortgage, that's a significant change in monthly payment. So the rates have gone up, but that hasn't seemed to have affected our median home sale prices. Essentially, prices are up 4.1% across the city. So it's not the rates. The rates haven't done much. And in fact, I'll come back to this subject of rates, but we thought this year that rates would go up, up, and up. Right now they're sitting there at that 4.1%. They're not really moving that much. That's good news if you're getting ready to think, at least if you're thinking about buying, but we'll come back to that. So I want to take a look at what may be driving this increase by 4.1% in median home sale prices. Number one, and I found it very interesting, the number of listings listed last April to this April were down 14% overall. What does that mean? It means there's less for sale. Inventory is down, folks. Last year, there was 14% more properties to view and make purchases on if you're a buyer. That means inventory is squeezing, right? So ultimately, if you're a buyer right now, you're stuck looking at whatever you can, but it's 14% less than it was last year. So inventory, supply and demand, it's simple. When the supply is high, then ultimately prices tend to come down. When the supply is low, demand is up here, right? It's way up here. Prices tend to continue to rise. So that's one explanation, but it's not a full picture. You take a look at the number of contracts that are happening this year, there are less contracts being done, 8.3% decrease from year over year, which means more people were out last year buying these homes at 3.59, 3.7% interest rates. Rates are down. interest rates are up, but the rate of which contracts are being done is down 8.3%. So there's less deals being done, but those deals are at a higher price and tends to be with less inventory in the marketplace. So that means a couple things, right? I gotta set my beer down to have this part of the conversation with you. Ultimately, if you are a seller right now and you live in Washington, D.C., I've got one thing to tell you. Sell. It is time to think about selling, folks, because right now you're taking advantage of the fact that it's 14% less inventory on the market. And selling may be the best decision you make this year, because next year we don't know. If rates continue to go up, if our rates continue to rise and inventory comes back up to higher levels, then we'll finally see a slowdown in the marketplace. But until that happens, sorry buyers, you find the place you love, get ready to compete with many other buyers, or at least be ready to make a decision really quickly, because ultimately, if you wait, that inventory level is way down, right? So you don't want to be caught standing without a home out there searching as rates are continuing to creep up. So that's an overall picture. So let's answer the question, how is the market in DC? Let me get my drink back to answer that. Bottom line, folks, the market is up in DC. The market is fantastic in DC. So when we go back to our whole point about the markets and what we're going to look at, we say if you are a buyer right now, it is a tough time. If you're a seller, now's the time to think about listing. So I've answered the question in Washington, D.C. We started this process, but here's the deal, folks. I'm gonna end with this. We want you to get involved. This show is for you, ultimately to bring you the best possible information. I get told all the time, Jonathan, I watch your videos. Well, check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Instagram. Get on my YouTube channel, hit subscribe, because this content's going to be coming all the time. We're not just going to focus on DC, we're going to go all around the Beltway and talk about our markets. So grab a beer, I'll keep the whiteboard in my beer, and hopefully we'll do this again soon. See ya.